Of all the layouts that I've built, my favorite are the ones that have had a more dense urban theme to them, such as the recent 2x4 foot N scale project layout, which had a lot of structures in that space. The 2x3 foot N scale project layout from 8 or 9 years ago, which had a more dense little town area. The 17 by 30 inch layout, which is pretty much all structures that I built several years ago. That one in particular I really liked because of how much it had in such a small space. But all of those are just urban themed layouts. Now Jason of Jason Jensen Trains recently had an update video on his layout, which he's been building for like 5 years now. And the dense urban scenery that he has on that layout is just really incredible and really interesting to look at. And similarly, Eric of Chicago Crossing, of that YouTube channel, and his Chicago Crossing layout, which is like 3 by 7 feet, has a Chicago theme to it, which is, overall a pretty dense urban environment for the entire layout. And both of those layouts also feature water scenes, which I also really enjoy. Now, I bring all this up because I've been pondering starting a 36 inch by 80 inch N scale layout next year. And so I'm doing some preliminary planning on that project. And I've been playing around with a Carolina Central concept for that project. But a viewer recently suggested I look at the Kunihiko Ikeda books, which I'm probably saying that name wrong, but those books on Amazon that he has, which are digital books that you can download. And so I bought a couple of those books and I've really enjoyed some of the layout concepts that he has in them. And I'll show you some of the free samples available on Amazon here so you can kind of get an idea of what those look like, as well as some of my favorite layouts from those books. So two of the layouts, the Mason and Manchester Railroad from the first book and the Port Beatrice from the second book, are ones that really interested me because they have multiple track levels. There's a lot of structures on them. It's a dense urban scene on both of those, and they both have river water type scenes on them as well. And so I was really interested in those. So I took the Port Beatrice design but modified it to have a larger minimum radius. I think it was like 9 3/4 on the original plan, and so now I have a minimum radius of, at least on the mainline loops, of 12 and a half, whatever it is, on the outside loop and 11.1 on the inside loop, so I can run much larger equipment. So anyway, there are 2 track loops with double crossover connecting them, and again, the outer loop has that 12.4 inch minimum radius with no grade at all to it, and the inner one is a twice around type design with an 11.1 inch minimum radius. And so that 12.4 inch minimum radius is large enough to run most equipment in N scale. You can even run, big boys on them. They won't look great, but they'll run on them okay. And you can run 6-axle diesels on an 11.1 inch radius curve just fine. And so that does give me a large enough radius for the curve to be able to run the things that I want to run on them. And this does look a lot like a big bowl of spaghetti, and those aren't great layout designs in general. But much of the track will be hidden from view by different levels and structures and things like that. And while that might be a problem in terms of access, this is going to be a portable layout, something that I want to take to train shows, things like that. And so that isn't really going to be a concern for me because I will generally have access to the different sides. And so you can see here a sketch of how the structures and scenery might be arranged on this layout. But this is just a rough idea, and I want to have a pretty dense urban theme. That's like the main thing here, and probably even more structures than what I'm showing. I'm just kind of mocking up places for potential locations of structures. And while there aren't that many industries to switch on this layout, there are a couple at least, and along with an interchange track on the lower left-hand side. So there is, some switching operations, but again, this is mostly a layout that I want to watch trains run on, take to shows, that kind of thing, where I just have trains running. And so one thing with this double crossover on this layout plan, you can have a single train make 3 whole loops around the layout without running on the same track twice. So if you do want to run a long passenger train, it's not going to really be chasing its tail so much, and it'll take longer to complete a full circuit. Or you can just have a train on the outer loop and then one doing the double loop on the inner part and have 2 trains running in that way. So I also have a staging track on the back, so you can have another train basically being held there while you're running 2 other ones. Anyway, I'll blink back and forth here so you can see the track plan with the scenery ideas on it and kind of, get an idea of how things are arranged. And again, with multiple levels and, the track at multiple levels, structures at even more levels, it is going to be a very interesting looking layout if I go ahead and build this. And here's the original Port Beatrice sketch from the book again, so you can kind of get an idea of how the structures might be arranged on a layout like this. Now, nothing is final at this point. Again, I'm probably going to keep coming up with more ideas and changing things and all that, but I'm kind of leaning more towards this idea of a complex but visually very interesting layout with a lot of structures that would just be really interesting to look at, especially if I take it to a train show and that kind of thing. Water scenes in there, going to have barges, all those types of, of additional modeling opportunities by having that kind of setup. So again, a lot going on in a relatively small 3 by 7.5 foot type space. And I think it just should be a lot of fun to build and to watch. But anyway, I just wanted to give you all an update on my latest thoughts for this future project for next year. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching. Bye.